So guys, Ty here with another video. This time we're breaking down bad habits. Have you ever tried to break a bad habit only to find yourself slipping right back into it again? Whether it's smoking, overeating, or procrastinating. It can be incredibly challenging to kick habits that became deeply ingrained into our daily routine. However, breaking bad habits is not only possible, but it can be accomplished by understanding these 4 laws of behavior change. This principle was echoed heavily by James Clear in the book Atomic Habits, which has done 12 million in sales. And I'm not perfect either. There's plenty of bad habits that I've picked up over the time. In fact, I consider myself to have what's called an addictive personality. That means if I lose at something, I'll continue to do it till I win, which is great in business, but it's not so good in computer games. Yep, if I lose a game of computer, I will continue to play until I win. And I'm not joking. There's been times where I'll just play a game for like 4 or 5 hours. Things like smoking weed. I'll blaze forever, constantly, right? Because I'm just got an addictive personality. So understanding that and how to take advantage is how I've been able to use these tips to flip that to where I'm basically just addicted to making money. So first, let's understand what those laws actually are. It's a 4-step process described by James Clear as cue, craving, response, and reward. This is the cycle that forms habits in the first place. A cue is a trigger that prompts a specific behavior. For example, seeing a pack of cigarettes can be a cue for someone who is trying to quit smoking. A craving is a desire and an urge that is generated by that cue, and the response is the actual behavior that occurs in response to the cue and the craving. Finally, the reward is the positive outcome that is associated with that behavior. In the case of smoking, the reward might be the feeling of relaxation and relief that comes from smoking. Now guys, things like tobacco is actually a good thing for you. The Native Americans, otherwise known as the Indians, used tobacco as a form of meditation and stress relief. And what you've seen is the system has used this to take advantage of your cues and your cravings and that desire for a reward to flip this on you, so you end up smoking a lot of cigarettes, which actually has a bad effect on you. So if you can recognize these habits, you can really use it to a mass scale. And you've seen the effect that people have used with cigarettes. So make sure you really watch this video, write down notes, and learn these steps, because I'm telling you, it's vital. Because I'm helping you here, it's vital for you to understand this. Now let's talk about how these 4 laws can actually break these bad habits. Now the first step is to identify that cue that triggers the habit. This can be difficult because cues can be subtle or they can even be unconscious. For example, if you habitually check your phone first thing in the morning, then the cue might be that sound of the alarm or actually the feeling of waking up. Once you have identified your cues, you can start to experiment different responses that break that cycle. I'll give you one example. So right now I'm actually on a dopamine fast. That means I can't take in no easy dopamine. That means no chocolate, no movies, no computer games. That means no smoking. And what I have to do is I have to recognize the cues that might trigger these bad habits. So one of the things that I've been doing is whenever I feel like I need to, go and eat, for example, I'll recognize the cues for that. One of my cues for eating is actually working. So I'll recognize, okay, if my cue is work, after I work for about 30 to 45 minutes, I want to have a little snack. What I'll do is I'll put a tea next to where I work. So that way my cue is now beginning a good habit, which is drinking tea. Now I won't have any sugar in the tea, but that in fact trains my brain to start swapping this cue with a good habit. So I hope that gives you a practical example of how you can integrate this. Basically, it's just out of sight, out of mind. No more chocolate in the house. It's all just tea now. The second step is to interrupt that craving that is generated by the cue. This can be done in a few different ways. One method is to simply remove the cue altogether. For example, let's take the habit of snacking on junk food. But this time, let's say you snack on junk food while you're watching TV. You can remove all the junk food from your house. This removes the cue and the craving altogether. Ultimately, you can replace the craving with a healthy alternative. For example, if you habitually reach for a cigarette when you feel stressed out, you could try taking a few deep breaths or going for a walk instead. And the third step is to replace the old response with a new one. And this can get very difficult because habits are deeply ingrained and it can be hard to change. However, experimenting with different responses and finding new ones that are more satisfying than the old behavior can gradually create a new habit and absolutely replace the old ones. For example, if you habitually eat junk food when you're feeling bored, you could try replacing the behavior with a more productive one, such as reading a book or going for a run. And finally, the fourth step is to find a new reward that is associated with the new behavior. This is important because habits are formed based on the rewards that come from them. By finding a new reward that is more satisfying than the old one, you can create a habit that you will stick to and will destroy the old habit that held you back from achieving your goals. For example, if you used to smoke to relieve stress, you could try replacing that behavior with exercise or meditation. These activities provide a similar feeling of relaxation and stress relief, but are more healthy and more sustainable in the long run. Now, recently I was reading a book that was talking about Big Pharma, and it was explaining why taking pills are a lot more effective than the actual practice. Let's take meditation, for example. A lot of people would rather take a Xanax, which is a multi-billion-dollar empire, then take the time to meditate. And this is because of the convenience. People love taking the shortcut. What you will see, especially a lot of you guys that have been in university and seen the effect that long-term use of Xanax can have on people, is that taking the short route out has long-term detrimental effects. So it's actually better for you to incorporate 15 minutes meditation or reading a book into your routine and remove the quick way out so your brain doesn't recognize it. Remove that cue. And that way, you're going to enjoy the process a lot more in terms of the meditations, in terms of reading the book, and you're not going to feel like you're missing out on anything. Meaning you get long-term effects without the long-term detrimental risk. Now, one of the key principles of breaking a bad habit is to eliminate one of the 4 steps of that habit loop. For example, if you can remove the cue to the reward, you can effectively break up the cycle. If you can interrupt the craving or replace the response, you can gradually create a new habit. By understanding the habit loop and experimenting and testing different strategies, you can find the best approach for breaking your own bad habits. Now, James Clear also goes on to explain that our habits are deeply connected to our identities. Our identities are essentially a collection of our beliefs about ourselves and our capabilities. The things we do, the decisions we make, and the habits that we all stem from is a core sense of who we are. The problem is that many of our identities don't align with our goals. For example, if you want to be a fit and healthy person, but you've always thought of yourself as somebody who doesn't enjoy exercise and loves junk food, it's going to be hard to form habits that support your goals. And usually, 9 times out of 10, you justify it. Now, you find a way to logically incorporate junk food because it's part of your identity. And then you see the way that you justify these beliefs. Most overweight people, they justify the fact that they're overweight. And this is the key part of this identity shift. I'll give you another example. People that have came out of jail. The reason why we call it institutionalization, that is an identity-based belief. People believe because they've been into jail that they can't have these opportunities and therefore they get none, right? However, you've seen the people that come out of jail, they change their identity, therefore breaking their own limiting beliefs. And as you can see, there are plenty of successful entrepreneurs that have been in and out of prison. So, how do you change your identity to support your goals and create an identity-based habit? The first step is start thinking of yourself as the person who you want to be. This might sound cringy or cheesy, but this is a very powerful technique to shift your mindset and start behaving the way that supports your goals. Here's something that you can try. Write down the identity you want to have. For example, I'm a fit and healthy person who loves to exercise and has a good diet. Then, start acting already as this is true. Make choices that align with that identity. So instead of reaching for a bag of crisps when you're hungry, choose a piece of fruit. Instead of skipping a workout, make it a priority. Why? Because the ideal person who you already are does that and he doesn't eat junk food. Get it? Over time, these small choices will start to add up and become good habits and consistently act in alignment with your desired identity. You'll start to internalize those beliefs and you'll start to see yourself as that person. The second step is to focus on the process, not just the outcome. When you're trying to change the identity, it's easy getting caught up in the result. You might be so focused on losing weight and getting in shape that you forget your daily habits that will actually get you there. Instead, focus on the habits themselves and make them a goal rather than an outcome. For example, instead of saying, I want to lose 20 pounds, say, I want to exercise for 30 minutes every single day. By focusing on the habit, you'll be more likely to stick with it, and then you'll start seeing yourself as the person who does these things. There has been loads of studies that actually say focusing on the tasks instead of focusing on the goal is more likely for you to achieve it. Think about it. If you remove the goal, then people that focus on the goal will never achieve anything. However, if you remove the goal from people who focus on the process, they will still end up achieving that goal. Crazy, right? The third step is to celebrate those small wins along the way. Changing your identity and forming identity-based habits is a long-term process, and it's important to acknowledge the progress that you're making along the way. Celebrating small wins can help you stay motivated and remind you that you are on the right track. For example, if your goal is to start a daily meditation practice, celebrate the fact that you actually sat down and meditated for 5 minutes today, even though it wasn't the full 20 minutes. Eventually, you will do the full 20 minutes. By celebrating the small wins, you'll be more likely to not only stick to that habit, but you'll continue to make progress. By creating identity-based habits, you'll create a powerful way to achieve your goals. By shifting your mindset and focusing on habits, you can start to see your life as a person who just does those things. Remember, celebrate wins along the way and don't be afraid to adjust your identity to achieve your goals. Look, you're the only person that can do it. You can't rely on others for this. Change your habits, change your life, and build systems that will reward you for moving forward, not just staying still or going back. I have plenty of videos to watch on my YouTube channel that will help you improve your habits and move forward. And the last tip I want to leave with you guys is a quote. And this is a crazy quote that I've been using recently, very recently. And it is, "A samurai has no goal, a samurai only has a path." Peace.